Okay, I'm trying this again. This is attempt number two. Welcome. I'm Suzanne Titkemeyer, formerly of No Longer Quivering with Pathos, now just doing my own thing. Hey, I wanted to talk a little bit about today about the crazier stories that came out of my old church. So many weird things happened in the years that I was there. Some I participated in, some I did not participate in. Um, couple of months ago, I guess a couple of months ago it was, I discovered that The Righteous Gemstones, written by Danny McBride, that Danny McBride went to a church in Fredericksburg. This happens to be a sister church of the church I attended for many years. So when I saw The Righteous Gemstones, there were a couple of stories that I knew were true because I'd either seen it happen and through this presbytery of various churches in Fredericksburg area, or I'd heard about it happening at one of the churches in the presbytery. Um, Here's the thing: we had crazy stuff happen. We had an experience I've talked about once before where the pastor asked for testimonies, and one of the young men got up, the 14-year-old boy that kept talking about masturbation and porn in great detail. He talked all about his sexual desires, all the horrible things he'd done, and detail over and over and over. I got to know intimately the type of porn this young man liked and how guilty he felt every time he was masturbating 10 times a day or some ridiculous amount. I just wanted to grab the kid and say, "Kid, you're normal, you're horny. This is not a surprising or obscene or sinful thing. This is how your body is made. This is how you are responding to, the changes in your body." But of course, I kept my mouth shut, and we were all wanting the earth to open up and swallow us. It was the most awkward thing I ever. Oh, yeah, pesky buffering. Oh, yeah, yeah. I hope so. I hope it goes this time and I don't get as much buffering. So this poor kid just grossed us all out. And he was hardly the only one we had that happened that was really strange. Um, One of the things I remember is getting cussed out for having the wrong kind of toilet paper. That happened with a lady from worship team that came to my house and saw I had Charmin and had a fit. It said I was wasting money. I guess in her world, the only thing you can do is to get the cheapest toilet paper until you're wearing the skin off your butt. So this was a thing. Am I still buffering? Because I see people dropping out. I must be buffering. So going back to these things, we had one time we had a lock in with the teenagers, um, a lock in with our youth group because I was involved with the youth group, with youth worship team, all of that. And during the lock in, somehow one of the kids had brought his next door neighbor who was this big stoner. I knew he was high as a kite. Walked in, his eyes were all dilated and stuff, having trouble even walking straight, like he was me falling all around. Somehow, some of the youth ended up praying for him, and it turned into an exorcist situation. He was on the ground, they were praying over him, he was thrashing around, speaking in weird demon voices. And I just stayed off the other end. I kind of watched this thinking, that kid is just, man, he's high. He's high as a kite. They need to stop that. So they kept on with this exorcism. Later, I asked that boy, I said, "Were you really high, or was this really some kind of spiritual weird thing going on with you?" He said, "I was just high. I was just playing along with them." So to this day, they all believe that they cast a demon out instead of the fact that they had a kid that had smoked so much weed they could barely walk. One time the pastor fell through the ceiling. We don't know what he was doing in the attic. Maybe he was hiding money like Judy Gemstone did. but he fell through the ceiling and was hanging on the wire. So after that, he became the amazing Spider-Man pastor. One of the things that happened after we veered away from Quiverful quite so much was our pastor started just going weirder and weirder with things. That's all I can say about it. You think talking in tongues, and speaking in tongues, and raising your hands during worship is weird? Ain't got nothing on what happened after that. We had people that would crow like roosters, that would roar like lions, lay on the floor and laugh, roll on the floor. They would go out and be ghostbustering all over the place. They'd be praying for people's houses and blaming everything on demons, which I always thought was silly. Stub your toe, it's a demon. This happens to you, or you watch a movie, there's a demon. Every time anything could literally, in their belief system, give you a demon. Um, so there was an awful lot of watching your brother to make sure he wasn't demonized. And a lot of really strange interpersonal relationships, too. Um, one of the, I think the thing for me that ended it was that one of our good friends, or my husband's good friends, ended up having an affair with one of my good friends. The two of them felt justified, and then a third person started having affairs, and they were all using biblical scriptures to justify the fact they were all fooling around. I thought this was one of the weirdest situations I've ever been in, and I only discovered it because the couple, each one of them told their spouse that they were with me for the weekend in DC at the Smithsonian viewing the Van Gogh exhibit. There was a special Van Gogh exhibit going on at the time. You had to get tickets to go to it. Each one of them told their spouse they were with me. And I knew nothing about this. So when so and so's husband says, "Hey, how was that Van Gogh exhibit?" I was like, huh? I don't know what you're talking about. I'm clueless. Yes, the husband and the wife asked me about it, putting me in the most awkward of positions. I had to admit I didn't know what they were talking about. The church went crazy at that point. That's when the pastor went off the deep end into ghost busting and demonic and all of that. And we started leaving because there's not much that was going on that lined up with anything in the New Testament. It was just it was just wild is the best way to describe it. And we kept having those things happen. We kept having, what is that? People. Yeah, it was a very much the toxic situation, Sue. Unbelievably so. And we started going to the Toronto Airport Christian Fellowship. That was another one that where a lot of us started going. And I enjoyed it while we were doing it, but now I'm looking back and wondering what was all that about? Because that was a lot of revival kind of things. When they had the party conference every year was a lot of fun. I would go to the party conference where we'd laugh and hang out. I remember one time we had an imaginary Jesus tea party is the only way to describe it. We're sitting in a circle having a tea party, a bunch of ladies at 6 o'clock in the morning. Um, I look back at that and I wonder what was that? Because I know it wasn't Jesus. It didn't line up anything with the Bible, but it sure was fun when it was going on. It's just now when I'm looking back and going, what the hell was I thinking? Um, Leaving the church is what propelled me to write about it. When I left, it was messy and horrible, very horrible. No matter all the funny things that happened while I was there that I can now look back and laugh at. When I left, the worst thing was I lost all of my friends. My entire friend group was in the church there, and it was mostly people who went to Toronto. I only retained one, and her and we're still good friends after all this time, even though I've gone this way, she's gone this way with church. We're still good buddies, but everyone else just immediately shunned me. I was told that I could not hang out with him anymore. There was nothing I could do with him because I was demon addled because I was leaving. And the only reason that I left that church was my husband left. My husband had just had enough and he just left. He started going to the Methodist church. I felt convicted that I was supposed to join him. I did that, and instead of them taking after my husband, what happens in quiverful churches and in fundamentalist churches is the woman gets the blame every time. So I was blamed for him not being there. I received so much BS from everyone in that particular church. After I left, I cried for 2 solid years. I'd lost all my friends. Every time I ran into anybody I knew in town, they would tell me, I heard that you're an apostate now, that you don't believe in God. I'd say, no, I just switched churches. That's all. And it was pretty horrible scene for me because, like I said, I lost my entire friend group. I lost my support circle, except for my one friend. I had people call me up and tell me they could no longer be friends with me any longer. I had others that when I called them to talk to them afterwards, said no, they did not want me impacting their faith journey by saying negative things. And at that point, I wasn't even that angry yet. The anger took a while to come. But once I got angry and I realized how toxic it was and how enmeshed and how just incredibly crazy, particularly the situation with the two friends that had the affair. And were using myself and others as cover and saying that they were with us. Look back at that and everything about it, so much of it involved just doing what you wanted and calling it God, saying that God spoke to you. I saw a lot of that. To this day, I still. Now, the people I was talking about that are coming to see us soon that I don't have any desire to see came out of that. They're part of the group that said they couldn't have anything further to do with me. So this is going to be interesting. I'm going to see what the relationship looks like now that I've been out. What year are we? We're in 2021. I left in 2007, late 2006, early 2007. I left the old, what I'm going to call Possum Creek, because that's close to the day without being the day, same thing. It's been a lot of years, and I've learned a lot. One of the things that I've learned is that everybody's spirituality is their own. There's no wrong or right one path for everybody. You work out your salvation with fear and trembling. I'm convinced of that all the time. And throwing rocks is definitely not the way to do it. Now, I could never go back to the creek, obviously, and I would never want to. They've now had a number of splits and closed, and everybody is scattered to the four winds. And it was kind of funny. Some members went on to try to join the local Mennonite church. The Mennonites would have nothing to do with them, said, no, we heard you people were contentious and you don't believe the same way that we believe, so you're not going there. There's a ton of people who've done home church, what I call the church of the holy basement, like the Duggars themselves used to do, that do home church so they can do whatever they want and call it God. Then others went to other fundamentalist churches and with various levels of success. I would have to say that my husband and I are two of the few people that went more liberal, more common sense, I guess you would say, more mainstream than anybody else. Very few people got out and went mainstream. Almost everyone stayed in some form of fundamentalism. I guess they can't function without having that framework to control their lives, is the only thing I can think of. Okay, you guys, I'm running out of breath. I'm running out of ideas. I told you I'd tell you about the lady who hated my toilet paper, and I did. So many weird things happened. That was really one of the weirdest to me. was her pulling me aside in that group and saying, "You're wasting your husband's precious money by buying Charmin. Don't let anybody diss your toilet paper. If it works for you, who are they to say that you can't have it?" Love you guys.